Well, hey, friends, this is Bruce Duty with Cross Country 3. Really excited that Cross Country 3 exists for the purpose of helping others become resilient, helping others become resourceful, and then really being fully restored. That, of course, is an ongoing process, learning to be resilient, because the challenges that we face are basically never ending. And so learning to be resilient requires adapting and overcoming and finding a new path basically all your life. And then resourcefulness, of course, learning to adapt along the way, finding your resources internally and externally. And then ultimately, through the challenges you face, you've become a renewed kind of person. Our values at Cross Country 3 are faith, family, and freedom. And those values or virtues are very important to us. And we have a privilege today at Cross Country 3 to spend some time with Jessie Huisken. Jessie lives here in the panhandle of Florida, and Jessie herself has faced some very difficult challenges in her life. Her and her husband, Travis, are enduring a journey that they did not wish for, and yet they have proven to be very resilient and are using the difficulties in their life not only to be better, stronger, more faithful themselves, but to help others in the process. So, Jessie Huisken, thank you so much for spending some time with me on Cross Country 3 today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm very grateful and honored to be here.
Well, I've heard a little bit about your story, and you and I have had a little bit of time to get to know each other. You and your husband live in Crestview, Florida,
yes,
which is just up the road from where this studio is at in Niceville, Florida, which is just north of Destin. So most people who are listening know Destin, of course, and the beaches and all of that. But there's some nice small towns in the area, and you live in one of those. How do you know what is the population size of a Crestview? Do you know? Is it 2,000 or 3,000 maybe?
It's actually, I think it's over 30,000 now.
Oh,
it's been, it's been exploding. It's really been growing.
That's right. Yes. Mm-hmm. I forget that so many people are moving in.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, right. So close to 30,000. So, hey, if you want a place to go to, a thriving, growing, young or small town, come to Crestview, Florida, unless you don't want it to grow anymore. You might be saying, hey, stay away. We don't want any more guests.
The traffic gets a little crazy, but we welcome everyone.
Yeah.
So.
There's a corridor there in that area, because I'm new to this area. I've not become really familiar with it, but there's a highway that I'm sure there's more than one, but one going north and south that runs from Niceville, Destin into Crestview. But you are actually right there on the I-10 corridor, right?
Yes. So we've got, they call us the hub city because there's an intersection there of Highway 85, which, as you were saying, is the one that runs north and south. Mm-hmm. And then we've got Highway 90, which goes all across the panhandle. And then, of course, I-10 as well.
Yeah. So you can get on I-10 and head to Tallahassee real quick.
That's right.
Oh, boy, if you want to.
That's right.
Well, Jessie, you were sharing with me that you, in the last couple of years, wrote a book. And the book that I'm displaying right here is Surviving to Thriving, Living Your Best Life with a Hospitalized Child. And your child's name is Phinley. That's right. You have two other children. And those two children's names are
Harper and Bennett.
Harper and Bennett. But Phinley faced some very difficult challenges in life, and ultimately you all walked together, and the result is you becoming closer to God, developing new skills of resiliency, and then telling the story of Phinley. And then you wrote this book to help other parents go through what you and Travis were going through. And can you go ahead and just tell us a little bit about Phinley and what she was going through and what you were going through together?
So we, about a week before Finley's 4th birthday, in 2021, she was diagnosed with AML, which is acute myeloid leukemia, which about 500 children in the United States are diagnosed with every year. And she spent almost exactly 1 year fighting that in various hospitals around the U.S. For different treatments, and ultimately ended up losing her fight the evening before her 5th birthday. So it was almost exactly 1 year that we were all fighting together. But she embodied resilience and she embodied perseverance. And I love that you focus on those in all the stories that you share and tell and interview people about, because it's so important. It is so important. And we truly learned from her. And honestly, the title of the book came from a story. It was a few days before she lost her fight, and she was laying in her hospital bed, and she knew, when a 4-year-old knows when they're not able to go play outside. They know when they're not able to go back to preschool anymore. They know when they want to go home and they can't. They have to stay in the hospital and sleep in the hospital bed. And so she knew she was missing out on things. She knew she wanted to do things that she wasn't allowed to do, but she always maintained a very happy attitude. And I had, people afterwards who had seen videos of her, but had never met her in life, asked me, was she always that happy? In her videos, she's always smiling. She's always laughing. And the answer was she was. I mean, she had her moments, because we all have moments, but she was very focused on other people. So if a nurse came in the room, she would always ask questions about, do you have any kids? Do you have any pets? Wanting to know more about them. And she would get so excited. One of her nurses had goats, and they would talk about goats every time that nurse came in. And another nurse, Phinley insisted on calling her mother once. She had a good conversation with her mother about that nurse. And so where the title of this book came from, it was a few days before she went to be with Jesus, and she was laying in her hospital bed, and she was very, very swollen. It was very hard for her to talk. She couldn't swallow. She couldn't eat. It was very hard for her to even swallow liquids. And she was laying there, and she had trouble sitting up or moving very much. And she said, "Mom, can I please have some Pepsi?" And I said, "Okay." And so she couldn't suck through a straw or take a sip from a cup. So I put a straw in the Pepsi and held a few drops on it, and I put it in her mouth. And she had sat up a little bit in order to get the Pepsi. And she lays back in her pillow and she closed her eyes. And if she could have smiled, she would have smiled. And she said, "Mom, I'm living my best life."
Nice.
That's what she said, because of Pepsi, because she got to taste Pepsi.
Yeah.
And so that's where this came from. How do you live your best life with a hospitalized child? She showed us how to do that.
Yeah. Appreciating the very simple thing that gave her a little bit of joy for the moment.
That's right.
A taste that she was familiar with, and gave her a little bit of something to hold on to just for that brief moment.
That's right.
Very special. When Phinley was about the 4 years old age, or about to turn 4, was she showing symptoms of this disease prior to, and you just didn't know what it was?
She started having symptoms probably in August. She was diagnosed in October. But in August, we started seeing things like, for example, if I was changing her clothes and she would lift her arms up, she would say it hurt, and she would put her arms back down. So little things like that. We ended up taking her to urgent care. They did some x-rays of her arm and shoulder. They said everything looks good. Let's go ahead and send her to ortho and just have them take a peek. But it's probably just growing pains. It's probably, there's a number of different things that could be causing that. Or maybe she just pulled it because, she has older brothers. So she was hanging on equipment a lot and
Yep.
doing different things. So we did a follow-up appointment with ortho. And at that time, just in the couple of weeks it took us to get from urgent care to the ortho appointment, it had moved from one arm to the other arm. And she was also complaining of some discomfort and pain in her legs. And so we went to ortho, and he took a look at everything, and he said, well, and then she was also spiking fevers, low-grade fevers on and off. And he said, well, I think this seems consistent, most likely with transient synovitis. So he said, let's give her about 10 days, give her some ibuprofen when she spikes a fever, and then we'll follow back up. And everything just continued, and then her gums started swelling. So we ended up taking her back in, and she had developed, I don't know if it was a heart murmur. Something was off about her heart when they listened to her heart. And that's when we were told, get ready for a very long night. You need to go to Pensacola, to the pediatric ER in Pensacola. So we went there.
So going from Crestview to Pensacola, about an hour, maybe?
Yep. So we called my in-laws. They came and got the boys, and we took Phinley, my husband and I took Phinley to Pensacola to the ER. And
at this point, it's frightening. Mm-hmm. You're starting, if you hadn't already, you're really beginning to think that there's something much deeper going on here. And I'm sure you were scared.
Yes.
Is that an accurate description?
Yes. I had never been told by a doctor before to get ready for a long night and that we would have to go to an ER. So It was very scary.
Uncertain future.
That's right.
You don't know what's wrong with your lovable and loving daughter, and you're buckling down for what comes next.
That's
or
right.
What did come next when you got to the Pensacola hospital?
They drew labs, and the medical system in America doesn't tend to do lab work very readily for kids. They just don't do that. And I understand that. So that was the first time that they had drawn blood work and done blood work on her. And that night, the ER doctor came into our room, and she said, I had the lab run her blood 3 times, and her white blood cells are over 100,000, and they should be around 6,000. And she said, I'm very sorry, but your daughter has leukemia.
Devastating news to hear. Yes. And you, I would imagine you can picture that moment that word leukemia was said. And are you okay with sharing what your first thought when you heard that word was? And maybe even as a believer in the Lord Jesus, was there an immediate call out to God for help?
There was, the first thought is, this can't be real. This is, they're mistaken. Misdiagnoses are made all the time. This can't be real. But, your second thought right on top of that, at least for me, was, but this is leukemia. Everyone's heard of leukemia. We have treatments for leukemia, right? Like this is something people have, but I know we have treatments for it. Mm-hmm. So it's going to be okay. I just know it's going to be okay. Yeah. It has to be okay. And so then you know, of course, the next thing is you're reaching out to grandparents, you're sharing the news with family, and everyone is stopping what they're doing and they're praying.
Yeah. That I am so sorry that you had to go through those painful moments of uncertainty. And, you know, I think that we're just all wired in our human lives, created men and women and boys and girls in the image of God. We're just wired for hope and optimism and dreaming for a future. And so you've got all these plans for Phinley and your sons. And as a family, you've got these plans that are just so much bigger than where you're at in Crestview, Florida, or Pensacola, Florida. And all of a sudden those plans are out the window, or at least for the moment. And you're wondering why something like this would happen. And I would think that's the natural response, is to say there's got to be a way out of this, because we have plans. We've got dreams, and Phinley is helping us to live out those dreams in the best possible way. Yes.
And it was even more surreal because in May, so 5 months before this, in May, my husband was actually diagnosed with cancer. So he was diagnosed with kidney cancer in May 2021. And so we were still in the middle of treatment and going through that whole process. And then her diagnosis just a few months later. It just felt like this can't be real.
So Phinley's diagnosis in Pensacola was at what date or what time frame?
It was mid-October. I believe it was October
of 2014
or 15, 2022.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, 2021.
And your husband Travis had been diagnosed in May of the same year?
Yes. He had surgery in July and was actually not fully recovered yet from that surgery at the time of her diagnosis.
And so he was going through treatments, recovering from the surgery, and this has to be just devastating.
He had no leave left from work. He was back at work after his surgery, but he had used all of his leave for his treatments and recovery. And it was very surreal.
Yeah. That seems like, if you're a family person, which you are, you're thinking, I don't know that it gets much worse than this. You mentioned family, so you were able to reach out to parents, grandparents, and others. Were they close by physically or geographically so that they can come? And I think earlier you mentioned that someone had come by to help take care of Parker and Bennett. So where are most of your family members at?
So Travis's parents actually live here in Niceville. So our boys were staying with them while we learned what we could and figured things out for Phinley. My parents they live in Milwaukee, and they were, once we knew what the plan was for Phinley, my parents are retired. And so we were very, very, very blessed that they could come down and actually move into our house. So Travis could continue going to work. The boys could stay at home and live in their own house with my parents there, helping to take care of them. And then I was able to go with Phinley and be there for her and with her.
Yeah. Well, what a blessing to have family nearby.
Yes.
It's great to have family nearby when you're enjoying life and getting together and having dinner together and maybe taking trips together. But, the rubber hits the road when things are tough.
That's right.
And having family members come in and be able to help fill the void and provide the kind of loving care that a family can provide. That's awesome, actually. It's obvious, Jessie, that you and Travis are growing through a very painful process. And that included finding out Phinley had leukemia while in Pensacola, and then going through the struggles over about a year-long period before she went on to be with the Lord. What are some of the lessons that you learned in that year, spending time with Phinley, you and Travis trying to get through his own health problems? What are the things that you've learned or were learning and maybe still learning?
I think the biggest thing we learned was it doesn't matter what your circumstances are. If you, and I did a terrible job of this. But Finley showed me how to do it. And after we lost her, we knew we're stewards of her story. That's what we have. We have her story and we're stewards of it. So what do we do with it? And she showed us that it doesn't matter what your circumstances are. It doesn't matter what suffering you're going through. We suffered watching her, but that's nothing compared with what was happening to her. And at 4 years old, you don't have a full understanding of what your body is going through and why you're having to do the things that you're being told to do. She lost a lot of her freedom in that. But she stayed free. She lost her physical freedoms, but she stayed free because of where she chose to keep her mind.
Yeah.
If you focus on yourself and what you're going through, I think you lose a lot of that freedom. You become a slave to that. And she never did. She never did. And I remember telling my husband at one point when I was in the hospital with her, and I told him, I said, it is very, and this has been true that whole time. And in the 3 years since we lost her, it has been true every day since then. The temptation to get lost in anger and bitterness and to feel hopeless, that is a very strong temptation. And I remember telling Travis, I can't go there because if I go there, I don't think I'm strong enough to come back. And so to learn from her and to watch from her example, focusing on other people, focusing on hope, focusing on Christ, and aligning with that, just like it says in Philippians, thinking about what is true and
godly,
yes,
and of good character.
Focus on that, because God won't necessarily keep you from suffering, but he is there through all of it with you.
He is.
And I do believe he was crying with us after we lost her. And so being able to come through that and being able to write a book like this to hopefully help other families. When she first got her diagnosis, we looked for something like this to help us get through. What do we do? What are some tips and tricks so that we don't have to learn from scratch? We are not the first family to go through this, and we won't be the last. So what have other people learned? And we couldn't find anything. And so when we came out of that, to be able to take what we learned from Phinley, what we learned from other families who have gone through this, what we learned from medical staff, what we learned from our experiences at different hospitals, and to be able to put it into a very short, hopefully very easy to read handbook for families who are dealing with this, so that they hopefully don't have to go through the learning curve that we did, and just give them a head start on that.
When you were thinking about that time that Phinley had just a couple of drops of that Pepsi and embraced the moment right there, and then you describing what you and Travis both have learned through this and are continuing to learn, it makes me think of a statement that I really like, and that is, life is beautiful if you'll let it be. And I think for me, that's what it seems like you're describing, and maybe what Phinley was expressing. She was finding a way for life to be beautiful in the moment, embracing the now, and making the most of that you have. And you're right. Viewers that are hearing this or viewing this know that they have their own struggles, and that God does not promise us a life free of suffering, but he does promise to be with us. The Lord Jesus himself said that he would be with us and not forsake us. And I think that that's a present promise, and it's an enduring promise. And if it's an enduring promise, then why not endure ourselves? And I think you're doing that. I think the fact that you've put together a book to help others walk through the mess and the muck of life, to help them, is an example of you persevering and enduring as the Lord is still present with you. And I believe it's evident, Jessie, that God is your shepherd, and as your shepherd, you believed at the most painful moments in that hospital room, and in the most painful moments of your discussions, most intimate and vulnerable discussions with your family members, that you understood that the Lord was your shepherd, and that maybe first and foremost, he was Phinley's shepherd. And that's a great truth to hold on to. I was reading through this a little bit earlier. Again, it's surviving to thriving, living your best life with a hospitalized child. And I was noting that there are, some action steps here. And I might just point those out real quick. And one of those is learn to say yes. What does that mean to a family that's going through a difficult time? Learn to say yes.
It means a few different things, at least to us. So saying yes, I think a lot of times in our culture, we feel like we don't want to be vulnerable. It's uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable to tell someone that we're struggling and that we need help. But when you go through something like this, something that was so beautiful and was one of the ways I feel like God was showing himself and taking care of us through it, was so many people in our community stepped forward and said, what can we do? What can we do? And when you are reeling from a diagnosis like this, it can be very hard to think through. I don't even know what I need done. I don't even know. I remember asking one of the doctors, what do people tell people who offer to help? Like, what are some of the helpful things? And she said, well, disinfectant wipes, and gift certificates to restaurants in the area around the hospital. So I said, okay. And we are still going through disinfectant wipes. because it's hard to know. But if someone comes up, so I give a list in the book of here's some practical things, right? It could be, I need toothpaste because we got an unexpected diagnosis and had to move into the hospital, and I didn't pack anything. So I need toothpaste. It could be, can you check my mail for me? It could be, the pharmacy just called and meds are ready and I can't go pick them up because I'm in the hospital with my child. Can you go pick them up for me? It could be, my yard needs to be mowed. It could be, but it's saying yes to people who step forward and offer to be part of your tribe.
Great advice. Yeah, absolutely. Because those people want to be at their best, knowing that you're going through what you're going through, and God has gifted them in certain and specific ways, and they want to be used. And that's great advice, especially when your mind is consumed with all the uncertainties that you were facing at that time. So learning to say yes, and then how about make it easier?
Make it easier.
Yeah.
That's a big one. So,
what does it mean to make it easier?
I try to give some very practical ways to do that. So make it easier could be, so for us, when you have a child who is medically fragile, like Phinley became because of this diagnosis, even when you're at home, those for brief periods of time, if she spikes a fever, if something happens, you never know when you might have to get back in that car and go back to the hospital. And so we were actually given this tip from a nurse at the hospital. She said, what I've seen other families do is just get one of those big beach wagons, keep it in your trunk, and have 2 sets of everything, 2 sets of toiletries, 2 sets of clothes, 2 sets of everything. Keep one in your car at all times. That way you are always prepared and you never have to worry about, oh my goodness, I wasn't ready for another admission. And now I have to worry about getting all my stuff from the house again. That
makes complete sense. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Make it easier on yourself. Don't make it's already hard. Don't make it any harder than it needs to be.
That's right.
Is there a chapter in here that you like the most, or is there something about surviving to thriving that you'd like to help others with that maybe is the most impactful thing that you've learned and then are trying to communicate?
One thing that I learned that was very helpful for Phinley was giving her back as much control as you can. And I think that's very important for all of us. We all like control. We do. And especially kids, it can be hard when that control is gone. And when you're in a hospital, you lose a lot of control. You lose a lot of that freedom. So being able to, she might want to go running up and down the hospital hallway because she has excess energy and she's 4 years old and she wants to burn it off. But she is connected to a whole bunch of meds and IVs right now. We can't do that. Or our platelets are low and we can't risk bruising. Being told you have to take this medication, being told you have to lay in your bed while we give you some blood products, being told you can't go home, you can't do these things. There's a lot of can'ts. And so giving back as much control as you can. And so for us, what that looked like was, okay, you have these 3 meds to take. Which one do you want to take first? You choose, you pick, up to you. And then you choose which one to take second. Do you want to take a break in between the meds? Yeah. Sure. Do you want to take a 2-minute break or a 5-minute break? You pick, up to you.
Smart.
We'll set the timer.
That's great.
And then just learning what's okay, because you can, and that goes along with the say yes piece, saying yes to your child. So And that can be scary because I think a lot of families don't know what the rules are in the hospital. They don't know what they can say yes to. And I think, at least for us, it felt like this is just a brief period of time. We have to get through this, and then life can go back to normal. We can go back to saying yes. We can go back to having a childhood. We can go back to doing all those things again.
Yeah.
But that is never guaranteed. And so the last year of Phinley's life, this was her childhood.
Yeah.
This was 20% of her life, was this experience. So if she wants to make a fort with blankets, make a fort with blankets.
Yeah.
I have pictures of a nurse hooking her up for blood products in the blanket fort. But finding a way to say yes, finding a way to give back some of that control. And then two of the big things that Phinley and I said to each other every day. One of them was no secrets. I think the unknown for all of us a lot of times is scarier than the known. And so when your child is not knowing what's about to happen to their body, they're not understanding the big medical terms that are being used around their bed by the doctors and nurses, that gets very scary. And if you're scared, you have behaviors. You maybe lose trust.
Mm-hmm.
It starts to impact, you have anxiety, and no one wants that for their child. And so even though she was 4 years old, we taught her the medical terms. We taught her, we used those words around her. And I always told her, I won't have any secrets from you. If you have a question, you can ask me, and I might not know the answer, but I'll tell you if I don't. And then we'll see if we can find someone who can get the answer for you. Mm-hmm. And child life specialists are available in just about every hospital, and they're trained to do that for a child. And then the other thing that we said to each other was plans can change. So trying to prepare your child as much as you can for what's going to happen as far as you understand it. And then, but just reiterating, plans can change, because sometimes, especially with a medically complex child, what you wake up and have planned for the day, you get a blood test back, you get something happens, and suddenly all of those plans are out the window, and you are quickly switching and going another route. And when things like that happen, you don't always have time to explain to your child what's happening, what's changing, and what to expect.
Yeah.
So I kept telling her, plans can change. This is what I think is going to happen today, but plans can change.
That's that adaptability piece. You draw on those resources that you have, your own inner strength, the fact that you understand that God's in control of all of this. And if he's in control of all of this, I'll adapt and adjust as the plans do change, even if it's an abrupt change. Boy, I really want to key in on the yes. What an opportunity for parents to learn that saying yes to your child as often as possible, because they obviously are going to hear no on a regular basis because of the dangers of the world in which they live and the sicknesses they may face. And so I think it's just become easy for parents to say no, and maybe be on the ready to say no at any given opportunity, but taking advantage of the privilege of saying yes.
Yes.
And you and Travis provided an excellent example of doing that with Phinley. I think that's great, because you're building in Phinley, and then anyone else that's listening, viewing, that observed that positive, optimistic, and hopeful behavior, you're giving them that reason to say yes, move forward, be positive. And I think that's terrific. Another thing that I'd like to key on is your use of the expression freedom, but it's the reality of freedom. So you may have lost control of some things, and certainly Phinley did, and you all found yourselves in this predicament that you did not wish, and yet you did not let that take all your freedom away. You had the freedom to have the positive attitude that you wanted to have. No one can steal your positive attitude away from you.
That's right.
I know that Chuck Swindoll is famous for saying that life is 10% what happens to you and 90% how you respond to it. And even in your case, as difficult as that has been, it's obvious that you have chosen to remain free in your mind, choosing to let God turn these difficult situations into dynamic opportunities to grow and to serve. So I just think that that's a beautiful illustration of choosing to be as free as you want to be, even in the most dark days of your life. And in that way, you are choosing to let life be beautiful if you'll just let it. And I think that Phinley obviously showed that. And I think that you're showing that now. Briefly, Parker and Bennett, what do you think that so they saw Phinley being resilient. They watch you being resilient. Do you have any specific illustrations of the two older brothers that learned some resilience through this that they're practicing now?
That's a great question. I'm going to have to think.
Well, maybe is Parker or Bennett engaged in any kind of sporting activities? Are they athletes at all? Or are they musicians? Or what kind of activities do they find themselves involved in?
So we did for a while after. So their lives were significantly impacted, of course, as well, while Phinley was fighting, and then afterwards, and then having to come back into a home with parents who were not the same as they had been 18 months earlier. A family dynamic that was not the same, and with the loss of a family member and having to learn how to navigate that. It's almost like you have to get to know each other again. And what does our family look like now? And, one thing that I've seen, especially from my oldest, we do things wrong. I have done things wrong. And so one of the things, after we came home, one of the things we tried to intentionally do was we wanted to solidify for the boys memories of Phinley, their sister. And so one of the ways we thought was a good way to do it was to, if something happened in the house or, something just reminded us of a memory with Phinley that the boys shared, to bring it up and discuss it, because we wanted them to know it's okay to talk about these things. We don't have to pretend like it didn't happen. And so my oldest, Harper, ended up coming to me once and he said, "Mom, I don't know how to say this to you, but it hurts when we talk about Phinley so much. Can we take a little break?"
Yeah.
And he felt comfortable saying that. And I said, absolutely, we can. But at 9, he was able to recognize that and verbalize it and come talk to us about it.
Yeah. And you can certainly see that with Harper being at 9 years old and thinking about all the other 9-year-olds and when we were that young. And forgive me, I may have called Harper Parker earlier. If I did, okay. I'm sorry. Harper understands that he has a life to live too, and he's trying to grow and develop and become the very best young man or boy that he can be. And so that's pretty insightful for him to bring that up. So it's sort of like the no secrets in your time in the hospital, you were going to make sure that you were as honest as possible with one another. And you're doing the same thing still with your two sons. And I think you have every reason to be proud of that and proud of them as well.
Thank you. I'm very proud of them.
Yeah.
And they are such, one thing that I think really was a beautiful impact on the boys is they have such a heart now for kids and people in general. I mean, anyone, but especially, they watched their sister lose her hair, not be able to participate in things with other kids because of what she was going through medically. And so now if they see someone who maybe looks a little different, maybe can't do the same things as anyone else, they are the first people to go over there and say, let's include everyone. Let's include everyone.
What a great life lesson. We are comforted so that we can learn to comfort others. And they have gone through that experience, very long, troubling experience of losing their sister. And it has grown their level of compassion and probably the quality of their care. It sounds like they're able to provide quality care to others. And that's great. All that is indicative of what the Bible says to do. And that is give compassion as God has shown compassion to you. And that's a blessing. And I'm sure you're finding a lot of blessings in light of the pain that you have endured and are in some sense still enduring. Your time here with me has sure been a blessing. And I appreciate that, Jessie, very, very much.
Thank you for having me. Truly.
You're kind-hearted, positive, optimistic, and hopeful. And yet you're grounded. You're grounded in the reality that life is difficult and we suffer in life. And yet we can take life on its own beautiful terms if we'll just let it.
Yes.
Your book, Surviving to Thriving, Living Your Best Life with a Hospitalized Child, can be purchased. And so if someone's viewing would like to purchase this for their own sake or as a gift to someone who's going through a difficult time that's similar to yours, where could they purchase this at?
It's on Amazon. So if you just search Surviving to Thriving, Living Your Best Life with a Hospitalized Child, it should pull it right up. You can also search my name, and it should pull right up. Or also my co-author, Craig Brockman. You can search his name as well.
I want to ask about Travis before we go, but is there anything else about Phinley or about this experience that you'd like to say before we wrap up?
No, I think I appreciate the time that you've given, your thoughtful questions, and for just giving me the opportunity to share a little bit about our story and hopefully give some hope to other people.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. So how is Travis doing now? Is he healthy? Is he stronger? Is he still going through treatments?
He is done with treatments. We are getting closer to the 5-year mark. And as long as his scans still show that he's cancer-free, then he will be considered a survivor.
Good. Yes. Surviving and thriving.
That's right.
Yeah. Well, thank you for listening to Cross Country 3. Thank you for your viewership. And if you're interested in more of what we do with Cross Country 3, you'll find on the YouTube channel CC3 with Bruce Duty and then the number 98. You'll find a number of videos that are designed to help you to be resilient in your own life, and that you will find yourself a resourceful man or woman, boy or girl, growing through the struggles of life and overcoming and being the kind of victor that God wants you to be in today's world. And also, if you would perhaps go to online and visit Cross Country 3 online. So it's crosscountry3.com. Learn a little bit more about our effort to help others be resilient. And that's to include veterans. We have a heart for those who have served in the United States military. We want to help them be at their best and find a new mission in life, a new purpose. So it's resilience, again, is not just bouncing back. It's actually finding a new path forward. Jessie has shown that she is continuing to do that. And dear friend, I know that you can do that too. It's not just bouncing back through adversity. It's learning through that adversity and allowing it to shape your future so that you can be the best man, woman, boy, or girl that God has called you to be and wants to equip you to be. So again, thanks for listening. We look forward to seeing you soon. Take care. Godspeed.